an Ivan or a Lulutop. Of course, if they walk into a trap of just drafting it for free, then we might take it. But if that doesn't happen, we'll just be playing with 2 or 3 carries.
All right, well, looking forward to seeing who can step up and when against which opponents. But focusing on Mad Lions today, we talked about the early game difficulties you guys had last week. We talked about the draft and how you explained them. But when it comes to facing Mad Lions and the strong early games they displayed, how do you intend on tackling this team?
Well, I think Mad Lions is a team that you have to fight with fire. So they're going to throw fire, and they drafted a lot of early game compositions last week, and they did very well on them, even against G2. So we're just going to look to fight them head on in the early game and try to get the advantage there, because I think they have a very unique playstyle in mid to late game when they're ahead. But when they're not ahead, I also feel like they struggle quite a lot at moving around the map.
All right, let's create a break during the early game then. Thank you very much, Young Buck, for the interview, and good luck against Mad Lions today.
Thank you very much, Laura.
And back to you, Jacques.
Thank you very much, Laura. Indeed. And Young Buck saying a couple of things that are of particular interest to me for this matchup. Let's start with the draft, because they did have some surprising choices, as said last week with the Ivern, the Lulutop, and then in the end settling on the Camille. Now, Young Buck saying this is more of in line of what you can expect from us going into this split.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the Ivern was practiced the day before, so I think they kind of went for the Ivern thinking we should go for it rather than was it good. Didn't really have any prior lanes, couldn't really function so well. And then the second time against Schalke, I think drafting full scaling Lulutop actually worked this time around, because you had something to play for, Graves, Kai'Sa, Orianna. But like we said, the Camille was really the one that shined for Kreis. I think the composition was really good. I think that XL played pretty well as well on this standardized composition, but I just want to see, can Kreis play something other than Camille and do something similar to what he did in this game? Because I think his Camille, we saw it last year, it was really good.
And of course, I do like the fact that Young Buck actually explicitly said that our third game against G2 with Kreis and Camille is what we want to do, how we want to play. That's what I want to see. I didn't like the support of top laners. A little bit earlier today in Ready Check, I talked about that Udyr in the jungle. Dan is the only jungler that has played Udyr. Lost both of those games, unfortunately for me. But I do want to see if that trend of putting Kreis on a carry that it can have more impact will continue. Just as a side note, that Camille game was the second highest damage percentage of any top laner all weekend long. So he really did perform very well. And there were multiple times throughout the course of that game where I thought that XL actually could have taken down G2.
Exactly, it was very close, and it seemed like he was on his comfort pick and in his comfort zone. Something else that Young Buck said is, you know, that late game team playing style where we only get going or we have to fight back. That's not something we want to make a habit of. And that was the case, though, for XL. Weak early games up versus the Mad Lions, who really prioritize the early game.
Yeah, definitely. The first 2 comps at XL Draft were kind of holding on for the early game. You can see it in the stats, 10th all across the board. I think that it just really wasn't an early game composition they were drafting. But look across the other side. Mad Lions, 100% first tower, 102nd in gold. You know, they were drafting really heavy early games. And we saw their early games were good, but their mid to late games weren't that great. So you can see that's the reason that they only picked up 1 win.
I mean, with 3 games apiece, obviously now we want to see some development, right? We want to see XL improving their early game. I think having a not Lulu and a not Ivern top can help in that regard significantly, especially when you look at just the G2 game in isolation. In contrast, Mad Lions, a team with 2 big important roster changes from last season to this season, seeing the early game working, seeing the elements of training that are easier to do during the week and coming into a split paying off. But now you want to see this younger roster developing, making smarter choices in the mid to late game, not getting so scrappy, not getting so forceful when it comes to fighting, to actually pushing the advantage.
But I think the fundamentals are there, right? You slot in 2 new players into Mad Lions, but their early games are looking strong. Fundamental early game is one of the most important things a competitive team can have, because if you have a stable early game and a lead, then transitioning your lead and playing from ahead is a lot easier than playing from behind. So I think that Mad Lions have the fundamentals. They've got a good early game. As the split progresses, if they can fix their mid to late game a little bit, I think they can be a really strong
And this
team.
is going to be a very interesting game as well, because when we look at, again, how specifically XL finished the week against G2, the only other undefeated team next to Rogue, I got excited. Like, you almost lost your voice in that game because like G2 and XL went blow for blow. So if this game goes even, it's again going to be a really good test very early on in the season to see how their mid to late game decision making and team fighting can play out.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. What can XL do against that early game might of the Mad Lions, or what they've showed in week 1? To highlight specifically their jungler Elyoya, who we heard from earlier. He had a fantastic early game in all 3 games. He had the highest goal difference at 15 at 10 minutes. Huge forward percentage. He was in that jungle jungle, that enemy jungle. He was pushing, he was helping his laners. And I feel like that's such an important part. We heard them talking about how they are expecting him to take a vocal role in the team and a strong role. So that's kind of what you want when you play the first games with a brand new jungler.
Yeah, definitely. That's really important, especially for confidence, especially for a rookie jungler to come in with a big voice. It's super important. I mean, we saw last year Shadow was really popping off in the regular split with his team. So Elyoya kind of needs to fit that kind of role. There's quite high expectations on him from the roster, from the coaching staff, but I think he's performed well. I don't think many of the mid to late game mistakes were on him as much. I think the early game snowballing was really good, but yeah, comparing it to Shadow last year, you've got a lot to live up to.
And I do think it's very important to zoom out and look at this Mad Lions roster that's on your screen right now and think about the fact that the Mad Lions team and organization and players excelled last year.
Yeah.
They managed to build up a fandom, a support base, and a level of expectation, especially because of the remaining players in Humanoid, Kazi, and Kaiser, our mid-split MVP, Kazi, one of the next up-and-coming like bot laners. When you look at Armut and Elyoya, they now have to live up to that, right? There's more pressure on them. Let's be frank, XL with Kedril were not super great, right?
Yeah, we were not bad.
However, the amount of pressure, of course, is going to be lower than that of the Mad Lions. And when you consider the Mad Lions, the success that they had, you mentioned a little earlier today that, they went to the World Championship, they didn't make it out of the play-ins, of course, but it is something that does factor in that we all hold them accountable.
Yeah, it's some insane goalposts that are shifting if you go into your year one and you do so incredibly well, and also the pressure on the remaining members, as said. But Armut is, of course, also very experienced as he played in the TCL and knocked Mad Lions out of the World Championship, but it's going to take a bit of adjustment time.
It will, and there's one last little story, just as we're getting closer to picks and bans, that I do want to highlight, that I also only just recently learned about, is the fact that Humanoid and Checker, they have a history together.
Yes.
If anybody follows them, or the players, or the organization on Twitter, there was some back and forth, and the fact that Checkerlud was actually on the Mad Lions roster up until that they qualified, and Humanoid was picked over Checkerlud. But there is a healthy respect, there is a healthy level of competition between the players, and from what we've heard from the Mad Lions organization and from the managers themselves, Checkerlud is actually really excited to go up against the guy who replaced him.
Yeah.
And there's bragging rights on the line.
The apprentice versus the master.
Exactly, right? Will the Padawan overcome and defeat the master? And that's what we're going to find out.
Oh, very exciting. Yeah, a lot of good faces to look at here on the side of XL and of Mad Lions, trying to get off to a flying start. And this week, the teams are fighting to find consistency after a chaotic start to the season. Let's see what happens.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I'm Benedek, this is Ender. We are here to bring you all of the action for the first two games of the day. Ender, it has been 7 months, 15 days, and 47 seconds since we last cast together.
That's a long time. Also, the seconds?
I made it up. I made it up, totally.
No,
it's been a while,
tell them
though.
that. They would have believed you.
I know.
They believe anything.
You know what? You know what Twitter's like. Like, someone would have gone and found our game, be like, Benedek, you were out by 7 seconds.
Yeah,
So
but that's just because they're also smarter than us. So
exactly.
It's a whole wide audience we got going for us. But I'm excited for our game today. Of course, starting things off with Excel versus the Mad Lions. And I think for a lot of people, Excel brought sort of a new, fresh breath of air, right? With like the Udyr pick and the supports in the top lane, a very different look than their 2020 selves.
Oh, it's a strange one because obviously we don't want to make too many conclusions from week one, right? Like, it's 3 games of play, but in the end, that's a sixth of all the games you have in the regular season. And XL, the only team in the LEC that's actually never made it to playoffs, so it's perhaps a sixth of all of the games they have for the entirety of spring. Now, of course, they're trying to prove that wrong as they take on Mad Lions here. Mad Lions going 1-2 alongside XL. Most of our teams went 1-2 last week, but I'm sure both of these teams have a lot to prove coming into week 2. Let's jump on in to the action. Go. I will say before we jump straight into the draft, all I can think of when you have that like building up wob 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 is to the moon now. I've been on Reddit, I've been on Twitter, like wob wob wob, we're going to the moon, diamond hands everyone, and immediately the diamond girl in the bottom lane is taken away. Seraphine banned here by XL. Mad Lions are going to remove the Pantheon themselves.
All right, so already seeing the bot lane menace taken off the board, but actually this Ryze is very surprising. So like Humanoid has definitely played Ryze in the past, but this champion we didn't really see at all in week 1. one, but we were looking at sort of like the solo queue histories for these players, and Humanoid has played quite a few games, I think 13 already on his account.
13 games, his second most played champion this season in ranked. He's in Challenger, he has won 11 of those 13. So although it is not a traditional ban in the form of something like a Twisted Fate or an Akali, the Rise is a targeted ban against Humanoid.
Yeah. The other band that's a little interesting here on the blue side is the Talia. Typically, we're seeing this band over on the red side, but if you actually looked at Excel's last game versus G2, they held off, you know, because all of a sudden G2's not banning this Talia, then they remove it themselves. So this is a champion that I do feel like maybe Dan doesn't prioritize as much, maybe doesn't have as much practice on, but something that people think is super, super strong. I am one of them, but maybe he has that Udyr prep for us and ready to go again.
I hope so. I'm really looking forward to playing some, to watching some Udyr today. Kai'Sa is going to be picked. 100% pick ban through week 1, was only sitting at about a 37 to 40% win rate, I believe. So actually one of only 4 champions that are being picked and banned all of the time, and the only champion that doesn't have a positive win rate out of those 4. Xayah now locked in for the Mad Lions. We saw a few Xayah bans last week, and I still think she is a very strong AD carry because of her self-peel in a lot of team fights.
Yeah, I think it's fun seeing us go back to the Kai'Sa and the Xayah times. These AD carries get to have a little bit more fun down the bot lane, a little bit more agency. Now an Orianna pick for Humanoid. This is largely to be expected, kind of early in the draft, you would consider it, but as far as Oriannas go, like, it neutralizes pretty much any lane you get, and Humanoid definitely feels very comfortable on this champion. This is one of his go-tos back at Worlds last year.
One of the good things about it is it can't jump into a fight, which is a weakness we saw from Humanoid last week, sometimes a little bit too eager to get into the middle of the fray. XL now going to get a Syndra in the mid lane for Shekolad. We saw how good he can be on that against G2 last week. And I expect them to go for a jungler here. Otherwise, your jungle pool is just going to get pinched a little bit too much.
Yeah, of course it would open up if Mad Lions wanted to go walk in a jungler on 3rd and then go for some bans. That would definitely start shrinking the pool. So we'll have to see what they do end up going for. They could also look for a support here or a top laner, perhaps, with this Gragas. Gragas, of course, very flexible. We do know that, but in the LEC, seems like top lane is the place for this man to be, which would, of course, limit those support champions. We wouldn't necessarily get a Lulu out of Cryzing.
I do also wonder if it just puts Armut back on Renekton duty. He played it a couple of times in week 1. We've seen the Renekton-Gragas matchup like too many times already, and instead Armut is going to go towards the Aatrox.
Yeah, the Aatrox Armut definitely felt more comfortable on, I would say. In week 1, completely took over that game. He was able to run it back on. And this draft is just sending me back in time. It really does feel like with the Aatrox pick as well. And I think that, you know, of course, up against the Gragas can neutralize lane well. Both champions have some sustain built into their kit, so shouldn't be too exciting up there. Perhaps we'll have to look towards other areas on the map and maybe our junglers to get that spice.
You can see Mad Lions still respecting the Gragas flexibility here. Banning out Camille. Cryz had a great game on that last week, and XL instead going to just focus on some of these AD carries that can initiate. Of course, Rakan, Xayah is a time-tested duo. They were literally made for each other. I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of something like the Thresh as well, just because of the ability of Kai'Sa to make plays and roam around the map.
Now, I will say, looking at, you know, as these bans come through, as far as like what Dan can go for in the jungle, I would be very surprised if we got an Udyr pick. This time around, Udyr with the Phoenix, very magic damage heavy, and when you already are showing very likely AP solo lanes, as well as a Kai'Sa that does do a fair share of magic damage herself, Dan probably has to look to more of a physical damage type. Graves is an option he could look to go for if he does want that, and would definitely fit the bill in terms of AD.
Makes a lot of sense. We did see Graves a lot in the LCK and the LPL. Not so much so far in the LEC, though of course Selfmade has brought it out on a couple of occasions. Mad Lions here probably looking towards their support, or you could go jungle here and then save the support for last pick. Instead they say, no, we're going to keep our jungler for last and lock in the Leona in that bottom lane.
Yeah, and I think the combination of the feathers plus Leona against a Kai'Sa, especially before she can get that E-evolve, you can definitely try to catch her out, snap grab her if you bring the jungler down towards that bottom lane. So I like that pairing, and sets up, gives some Mad Lions some more team fight options, that long range initiation, either with that solar flare or you chuck the ball on top of a Leona as she's trying to jump in. It definitely fits the bill here. And now for that all-star next to the Kai'Sa, it's all about these melee supports for her. Gragas very likely going up top side, I would say, off of that, and a strong composition all around.
And there's the AD jungler that you were looking for. Physical damage coming out in the form of the Graves for Dan. So nothing too inventive from XL this week. Last week we saw the Ivern, the Lulu, a couple of games of Udyr. This week, it's all a little bit of purple and orange. Gragas, Graves, Syndra, Kai'Sa, and Alistair to round it out. And Mad Lions here will be looking towards their jungle. Alioya has a bunch of options. He was very well known for his Hecarim when he was playing on the Movistar Riders, but instead, we are going to see some Ivern in an XL game. It's Ivern we expect in the jungle for Alioya.
The Green Father makes his presence known here. I like it. Okay, so you got some shielding, pair that up the Ivern, of course, with the Orianna, and then you can turn this Aatrox into a complete raid boss. Of course, there's some low-range damage dealers on the other side, so a Graves plus a Kai'Sa. If you give him the speed-ups, get him into the fight. Assuming Armut has a good time like he had on the Aatrox the time he played it just last week, this is looking pretty potent here for the side of Mad Lions.
I will note there was a tiny nerf. Well, it was a moderately sized nerf, but shouldn't affect Ivern too much on this patch. They took the AP ratio of his trigger seed down by 10% from 90 to 80%. So, although it will hit him, I don't think it hits him so hard that he can't still fulfill his function of having Moonstone and Staff of Flowing Water. Let's get into the game. And on to Summoner's Rift we go.
Yeah.
Early on, we can see that Patrick is under the effects of a Nocturne ultimate. Paranoia has gone down on the entire XL lineup. So I'm sure we'll be getting that sorted as soon as we can. But let's talk about
this is what happens when Vedius doesn't cast with you.
I know,
He just has a little...
It's the only time Nocturne's
He has to act out.
games.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Excel getting a little involved here at level 1 already. Of course, the fun thing about playing against Ivern is that there's no sort of smite fight at level 1. If you can interrupt him from charging that, you don't let him do much of anything here. But I think they're just going to back away after getting that initial ward here and try to plot out exactly where Alioya is going to be in this early game.
And before anything really develops, I do want to kind of talk about the disparate nature, actually, as Patrick steps forward. Please, guys, come on. I have a whole spiel. I have a whole thing I want to talk about. Okay, here we go. The disparate nature between these two teams. Because Mad Lions' early game last week was their shining light. Alioya got ahead. They were able to get gold leads in the early game. They were able to get advantages in lanes in the early game. XL, on the other hand, fell behind in every single lane. Like, this is their gold per player at 15 minutes, their gold difference for their enemy. You can see Kryze is behind 400, Patrick's 1.4k behind, and Shekulad is behind in the mid lane. And XL were very good at fighting back from being behind, where Mad Lions were pretty poor at taking a lead while being ahead.
Yeah, and I'll say that Excel, definitely this is something we need to look out for. Just 3 games into the season already, but look to have some stronger performances out of their laners in particular already off of this one. Usually in a game like this, like Graves or Ivern, it's going to be a little bit slower going down here. I don't really feel like these lanes are super explosive. If anything, we'll be looking for maybe some plays around the bot side with some mid lane priority, potential teleports a few levels deeper into the game.
Yeah, you can see Shekulad already using that mid lane prior to get a ward down in the pixel bush. Ivern is on this side of the map for the moment. He's going to make some friends in the forest, pick himself up a blue buff, and then can work his way down towards the Scuttle Crab in a while if he so desires. Or instead, he can work his way back up towards that top side jungle and start farming some more of those camps.
There's nothing friendly about Ivern, let me tell you. He's, if you're a lore buff out there, you know. He's a little twisted.
His passive's called Friend of the Forest.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what Annie's sister's name is?
No.
Daisy. I'm just dropping the mic with that.
It is a very common name for young, just for women.
Coincidence?
Probably.
I don't know.
Although Annie has Tibet. Okay, now, and I can't get into these conspiracy theories in the middle of a game of League of Legends. We've got to concentrate on the cast. This is the LEC.
I'll allow it.
All right, here we are. We can see Alioya taking that bot side. Scuttle Crab. Dan has done a full clear, finishing off his wolves now. There is a ward from Armut up towards that top side Scuttle Crab. So we'll see if Dan actually decides to go for that because of Ivern's passive, because of his clear speed, Dan is just that little bit behind in getting through his jungle.
Yeah, and actually, yeah, Armut being able to walk down here, of course, with Cinder having Prio, that may be a little bit difficult, but you can take some pressure from a mid lane gank and turn it up towards that top river. Shekulad also very low on mana. This is not going to be very helpful for him in the fight.
Alioya's on his way as well. Shekulad basically no mana at all. Armut going in, the trigger seed is there. Shekulad has to flash away from Armut. Who won't get any more damage down, but Kaiser's been stunned up, and there's the root, the Blade Caller, straight through the heart of the XL bot lane. XL, another stun. Patrick has the cleanse, though. Not quite enough damage there from Kazi.
All right, Kaiser feeling aggressive with it. We're teleporting straight back into the top river.
Armor has to flash away the trigger seed on him. You can see the chase still coming out from Dan. No flash on Dan, but Kreis has his, and we'll have that body slam up in just a second. Instead, they force Mad Lions away, and I believe it looks like the Scuttle Crab was already taken here.
Yeah, Elyoya was able to pick that one up. So early game woes strike once again here for Excel. Not just, you know, misreading the situation in the top river where Dan really wanted that crab, but didn't really respect the fact that Chekalod used his entire mana pool to get that priority, which was instantly negated by Elyoya showing up in mid lane. But also that 2v2 down bot lane was completely disastrous for Excel. Kaiser and Karzi once again showing that they have the upper hand in the majority of 2v2s in the league.
Have another look at it. You can see Torre goes in, looking to be aggressive, and like you just can't do that.
Yeah, it's the Zenith Blade following the flash, right? There's that small window where you can actually get the flash off, but all it does is put him closer to Patrick, and Torre, of course, falls in the end. Alongside
that, like as an Alistair in that situation, if you're engaging, you have to make sure you can't be re-engaged on, because you burn your Aftershock with your Headbutt Pulverize combination. And so if the Leona can absorb that damage and then go back in with the Zenith Blade, you're just going to lose out on that trade every single time.
Exactly, and I actually think it's really worth pointing out that Torre did go for the Aftershock, because it is much more popular nowadays to go for the Phase Rush on the Alistar. Of course, you know Mr. Support Main over there, that's all about proccing your E very easily and chasing people down, but Aftershock should, in theory, give you a stronger 2v2 early on in the lane phase, and the fact that they lost already makes that choice a little bit worse.
Also does help you if you are one of the primary engage tools for your team, because as you can see from the rest of XL, Kreis can kind of get in there with a body slam into Explosive Cask. Torre, though, will be the guy going in. You can see him here near the mid lane, just trying to make sure that Chekalad has an easy enough push in. Chekalad can now back and reset for mana if he so desires, or he can just stay in the lane and try and continue to put Humanoid under a little bit of pressure.
So one thing worth pointing out here is top laners. Armut does have a teleport advantage and was able to get back to base for that Kindle gem for the early ability haste, which means that XL can't even try to reclaim some of the pressure around bot lane. Like Dan can't show up down bot side because he's facing a TP mismatch in top lane and in mid lane, I'm noticing. So now using this huge wave at the same time Dan's top side to pick up his blue buff, it looks like, they're just going to be denied 2.5, 3 waves. Like, how many ranged minions are there? There's 9 ranged minions. That's 3 waves worth of creeps there, being completely deleted against the tower.
It's just so much gold, and 2 plates going into the pockets of Kazi here, and this is kind of indicative of XL's week 1 play as well. As I said earlier, we don't want to draw overarching conclusions about the team, but it is a trend that Patrick is falling behind, already 1,000 gold behind Kazi on the Mad Lions, and we're only 6 minutes 50 seconds in, Ender.
And check this out. So we're going to pick up the red buff, and Karzi's also going to be able to walk up, stand inside the circle, get a red buff for himself, and wow, the 2v2 just got even better, Mad Lions fans.
We'll see if XL are able to do anything about this, because right now they are hemorrhaging gold from the bottom lane. Patrick has always been a key carry for them, even in 2020. But we did hear Young Buck earlier saying he isn't the only carry on the team. Although he has had a couple of really good games and the compositions have been built around this player, it doesn't mean that XL can only play through bot.
Yeah, and I mean, we also saw some comps built around, you know, sort of jungle as well, right? When Dan was on the Graves, and I think that was the game they had the Lulu in the top lane, Orianna in mid, so there's been some pressure for him too. Armut gets knocked back into the tower.
Yeah, Kreis wasn't quite able to get Armut in the exact position he wanted. I think he actually knocked the cannon minion back as the Blade Crawler comes in, and here's the Zenith Blade. Patrick does have the cleanse. Torre now knocks Kaiser back towards him, but he's already dead. And now Kaiser just stuns up Patrick. Patrick has to burn the cleanse, and it doesn't matter if Dan's here, because Kaiser and Kazi are having a field day.
Oh man, using that red buff, and then even Kazi trying to use the heal so that Kaiser could get the stun off. It didn't work in the end, but every single lane from Mad Lions is completely dominating. Again, Dan has to support bot side. He's level 5 here. In the meantime, Elyoya is going to run top side and steal away the blue buffs. Now, both buffs are going to be handed over towards the Mad Lions. And again, these are doubled buffs, right? Humanoid's going to be able to go over towards the blue buff, hit that circle, and get that for himself as well. So this early game is just going every single way in favor of Mad Lions, and it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, usually you can 4-buff your opposing jungler. Here, we're seeing an 8-buff of the opposing jungler. Everyone gets a red, everyone gets a blue. It's like being on an episode of Oprah. But you do have to give credit to Mad Lions. Only 8 minutes in, they are 2,000 gold ahead. And now we have to see how they extrapolate this, how they develop this into the next few moments of the game. Because right now, you're looking for those plays. You're looking to get pressure
Kaiser
down.
gets a red buff.
Okay, I'm not going to say I love it, but I love it. Like, because the thing with Leona is, The only real difficulty you have is after you've locked someone up once, it's following them. And if you can slow them with a red buff, Shield of Daybreak is a 6-second cooldown it. A 6-second cooldown, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, Cleanse, that's like 210 seconds. You've got all the time in the world. Give your supports red buff. Don't listen to those AD carries. They don't know what they're talking about. Come on. They say the game's broken every year.
If you're playing Ivern and your support is topside,
No, give it to them anyway.
AD carries running back topside.
Anyway, here is the Rift Herald from Mad, and I asked just 30 seconds ago, Ender, how are they going to continue? How are they going to snowball this lead? Well, this is a prime example of how to do it.
Yeah, and I almost like it, right? Mad Lions focused first was on taking away enemy jungle camps, right? When they had the huge bot pressure, they very easily could have walked away, taken Dragon, but Dragon doesn't really mean anything at the start of the game, right? Like, the stats from Mountain Drake are going to be, you know, very inconsequential compared to the gold and EXP you're going to get from all those waves and the denial around the bot lane from stealing away a red buff that then transitioned into a kill later on. Even the Herald was preceded by walking in and taking away a blue buff from Elyoya, or by Elyoya as well. So I really like the order of operations here for Mad Lions, and what it's going to mean is they're going to amass this huge gold lead, and maybe they don't ever get to the point of having, you know, a Dragon Soul later into the game, but they're just going to have an item advantage over Excel, and that's going to make it impossible to fight.
Shockwave used in the mid lane as Humanoid just trying to chunk out Shekalad. It's already a level advantage for the Orianna. Kaiser's going to get this ward in here to spot Torre and Dan if they do work their way around. And although Dragon isn't the most vital, the most important, you can take it in a situation like this where you have a pushing mid lane, a pushing bot lane. Elyoya can do it pretty easily by himself. Trigger Seed just keeping him topped up on HP as he whittles away the Dragon.
Yeah, he's doing the Dragon. He does have some camps up, but they're charging up at the moment.
It's a 2-level lead for Kazi.
Yeah. That's what happens when you deny 2.5 waves off of the tower, get a couple of kills. I mean, now Patrick's, of course, hit level 7 for himself, but this is very well played by Mad Lions already.
Yeah.
And Excel just don't really feel like they have any way to battle back into it because, to be honest, like a lot of their lanes were on the back foot already. And Dan in the jungle, like on this Graves, like he's trying to chill, farm just a little bit, and he has not been able to do that with the pressure Mad Lions have been exuding.
It's just actually an incredible start by the Mad Lions. 3,000 gold at 11 minutes into the game. I'm going to check with our stats as we get towards that 15-minute mark because I think we're approaching like biggest lead at 15 proportions quite easily here, at least for this split, if not for like LEC history.
Yeah, and I mean, the more impressive thing about this play to me is it's just 2 kills, right? That's turned into 3,000 gold, right? And they're going to get more with the turret played bot side, whereas I think in the past you would expect Mad Lions, if they're going to have a big lead, it's going to be an explosive early game, you know? Yeah. You know, Shadow of the past flying in for ganks. This time it's just been Elyoya saying, hey, we can chill, walk into the enemy jungle. He's been in the right points to apply pressure and help deny waves many, many times. And the team has not been making many risks. It's just been calculated plays. Now the Herald goes bot side. That's going to be a very easy first tower, and Patrick again has to vacate the premise.
And remember when we talked to Mac originally, he was saying, well, Elyoya is this cerebral jungler. He's the smart guy that can make these moves on the map. He doesn't need to be getting all of these kills. It's working out for Mad so far as the tower in the bot lane drops. And the Rift Herald will get one more charge in here. Patrick's going to try and stop it, but the eye was not open. And now, we'll see where Kazi and Kaiser go, because there's no Dragon on the map for another little while. There's no Rift Herald on the map. You can just move them up towards the top lane. You're not losing anything on the bot side. And you can look to get some more of these plates. 1 minute 30 for Mad Lions to get as many plates as they can.
Look, Medic, I'm just saying this is what Excel get for not playing Udyr and Ivern top lane. You know, they went a little bit boring, and now what's going on here? I want the spice. I miss the spice, Medic.
I'll be honest, after watching them against Misfits last week, where everything was a skirmish and every time they lost, I'm quite happy to see Mad Lions be a bit more measured. Like, who else has been measured so far? Rogue have been incredibly measured and are probably the best, if not joint with G2 team in our league right now. I like measured play.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like some more kills, obviously. I'm a play-by-play.
Oh, no, I was saying Excel need to go for the spicy picks.
Oh, Excel needs to go.
Yeah. I love how Mad Lions are playing it. Like they've hit the item breakpoints now too, right? With a Moonstone, a Gale Force. Gale Force received a pretty meaningful nerf to the active item. Went from 60-second cooldown to a 90-second cooldown, which is quite the increase. Of course, when fights are happening less frequently, maybe it doesn't matter quite so much. But still an item to look out for. And here we go, 3v1 under tower.
Yeah, Armor's been locked up, stunned up, and he is done for. Not really much you can do in that sort of situation. Didn't even have time to burn his flash.
Yeah, okay, so this is good from Excel trying to make some sort of a cross map because you know Madline's putting so much pressure in mid. Unfortunately, like this wave in mid is gonna allow Madlines to get almost 2 turret plates. They should be able to finish that one off. They also had Karzi hard pushing in towards that top lane, so still a very large gap between the 2 ADCs, but Patrick is getting a lot of time by himself here. Dan's also been able to split the map and steal away a couple of camps, so this is a good move here from Excel to fight back in some way because it has been very quiet from their side up until the 14-minute mark.
And I think that's what we've kind of seen from XL over the last week or so. Their early game is a little bit lacking at times. They haven't been able to find these advantages in lane, but when they get out of that, they've had a few times where they've been able to fight back even from a 4-5k deficit and have some good team fights. The G2 game springs to mind. And even though they lost that, they still, stood pretty strong in the face of G2.
Yeah. Go looking at some of the more of these mythics coming through here. I like the direction Dan has gone. I think last week especially we saw a lot of Gale Force Graves. Yep. I think Immortal Shield Bow as some of the changes continue to come to the items, and just on Graves in general in a very scrappy game with a lot of these fighter style champions. Graves wants to get into the thick of things, and I think having that extra sustain and survivability within fights is gonna in the long term give him more effectiveness against this Mad Lions team, because if he was going for this Gale Force crit build, I mean, imagine trying to punch down an Aatrox who's sustaining with his ultimate, with shields on top of him and Moonstone from Elioya and the shields from Humanoid. Like, that's going to be really difficult. And I think the battling healing with healing is a little bit more effective of an approach than just the raw damage.
It's just going to be who can sustain the most throughout a fight. It's going to be
welcome to 2021
to watch. Armored here once again under the tower, but he has Elioya for safety. Daisy pushes Torre away. And XL will try to look for something as Shekolad and Humanoid look for a fight in the mid lane. The shockwave comes down, but Shekolad can just unleash power. Humanoid almost dies, has to flash away. Shekolad still has to flash. The Dark Spear comes out. And Kaiser, a little bit too late to help out his mid laner, is now in for a world of hurt. Solar Flare comes out, only hits Torre. Dan still on the chase. Kaiser has to flash across the wall. Karzi hits track.
Oh, poor Kaiser. He tried to drag them away from Karzi, right? If he walks down into the river, then 2 people are going down. So Kaiser's going to take one for the team on that. But Shekolad with a solo kill, and then Excel punishing Mad Lions right there. Very nicely done by them.
Shekolad with a solo kill versus the guy that used to stand above him. Of course, Shekolad and Mad Lions were teammates, or at least Shekolad was on ERL roster for Mad Lions in the past. Looks up to Humanoid quite a lot, so getting that solo kill will definitely be a bit of a bolster for his morale. And it does lead me on to a very important point here, and Humanoid. It would if my buttons were working, but we're going into a replay, so I can't use...
Humanoid is in this replay.
Yeah, he's about to die.
That's exactly what you were going to say. So right there, Humanoid just doesn't actually dodge away from the first Q there. Shekolad just, lands 2. This will be his 3rd Q and an R, and that's good enough for the kill there. And of course, the rest of Excel running down here. Even if he hadn't finished off the solo kill, like Excel were going to be there to show up. Excel were trying to, start that play off, of course. And here's where Kaiser realizes, if I go down to the river, we're both dead. Torre also was on the hunt for Karzi with that, but the rest of Excel decided we get the guaranteed kill instead of going for that little extra on that Karzi kill. Humanoid.
We can't. The button isn't working.
No. I was trying.
Yeah, I understand. I tried as well, but for the moment we won't. Well, we can. I mean, we can still talk about it if you want. You still want to talk about the point? Humanoid dies a lot.
If you guys are wondering, Benedek was really trying to bring up a graphic, a little thing with some stats on the bottom of his screen. He was struggling with. Oh, look at that!
Look at that!
See, all we have to do is give a little hint.
Lucky, yeah.
Benedek didn't do that, by the way. That was probably Kevin. Thanks.
Okay,
Kevin.
so let's talk about Humanoid a little bit, because right now he is struggling. You can see as the shockwave comes out in the mid lane, he's forced back. Kaiser does have a flank, but we're fine for the moment. Torre should be okay as he dives back on into Armut. Get rid of the Humanoid graphic for me, thank you so much. Armut is dead, as he took a bit off a little bit more cow than he could chew there, with Torre taking the kill.
So we've learned anything. Medic's not allowed to do the graphics.
Yeah, it just throws us off.
If we've learned another thing, it's that Excel continue to try and group up his 5 to force these plays, and I think this is the right decision for them. Unfortunately, at the same time, because Mad Lions aren't losing too much, right? It's just a kill here and there, and they're always gaining waves on sides. They gain a turret right there too. They're still maintaining this gold advantage, and if we could actually throw up the gold difference between the 2 ADCs, you see Karzi, 2 items already, 3,000 gold lead, like almost the entire advantage advantage for Mad Lions in gold is in that bottom lane, and that means that the second Mad Lions decide to say, hey, you're bringing 5 people to the fight, let's bring 5 people too, because they have that monstrous lead on Carzzy and an Ivern to make sure he never dies, well, those fights are always going to be going Mad Lions' way.
Carzzy also benefiting from the upgraded Essence Reaver, was buffed on this patch. You get 40% of the mana back from the Spellblade damage instead of just that flat max mana percentage. It makes it just that little bit stronger. It's not like overpowered, in my opinion, but it does just give you that little bit more mana per fight.
Definitely does here. So let's see how Mad Lions attack the map, because this time they've actually decided not to put Carzzy in the side lane, so he's going to be posted up around mid. Going to be really attacking that middle lane with the Herald, but I don't know if Mad Lions can actually pull this one off. Chekolad has TP if he wants to get into this fight, but I think he has to give up on that flank. There's wards that are spotting Mad as well. Mad Lions could just turn on him.
Yeah, Torre is flanked by Armored as well off towards the top. He will be able to retreat, but you could see what XL were thinking about.
So he missed it. It was just a little bit off your screen, but Torre just had to flash away from Armored, who was flanking the flanker there. So I don't really know what XL were trying to accomplish with Prize in the bot lane and Chekolad on top side, but now they're going for the kill on Humanoid.
Humanoid caught out just a little bit as Patrick gonna step forward. The shockwave flashed away from Solar Flare, misses, and Humanoid almost dies as Patrick dives in with the Canonian Strip. But Carzzy just underneath the tower. Look at the damage coming out from that Xayah already.
TP flank, that's Chekolad.
Chekolad on his way. And here comes the counter TP. Armut's going to join the fray. Dark Sphere across the wall. XL will accept the TP and walk away from the fight.
Very odd series of events there from both sides. You know, it felt like Mad Lions were winning the pressure game the entire time, and XL seemed content to trade a tower in mid for that tower in top side, but of course Torre got very aggressive with it around mid, ended up having to lose his flash off that. So still, I think teams are trading roughly even for the present time, and as soon as you saw Mad Lions were willing to commit to that 5v5, XL must back away, which they did to their credit there, so they didn't end up risking too much and throwing it away.
And it's kind of been the story of XL's games across the last week. It's this fall behind, have some good fights in the mid game, sort of keep the gold even-ish, at least the gold difference even, because it's been 4,000 since the 13-minute mark. The question that now comes to mind is, what next for XL? Because you don't have a Dragon Soul stacking up. You're going to have to take a fight over a Baron or over a Dragon or over perhaps your Inhibitor Towers, which are basically the only ones that remain standing. Can they actually ever face up to Mad Lions?
Potentially. It comes together when you're trying to craft the winning team fight for XL. And I think you always have to, you know, isolate and look at Carzzy. Of course, the fact that he has a flash and ultimate, it's going to make things hard. If you lose Dan, it would make it even harder as Kaiser just puts the sun in his eyes so that he's able to take away that control ward. But realistically for XL, what they need to be doing is working with Torre and Kryze to displace Carzzy and then blow him up. Let's see what they can do against Kaiser.
Patrick diving in with the killer instinct, but you can see the trigger siege just keeps Kaiser so healthy. Cleanse used by Patrick. Kaiser has to flash away. Humanoid onto Patrick down towards the bottom side as Kryze joins the fray as well. Mad still pushing forward. They're looking for Patrick. Flash forward. Shockwave goes down, but Humanoid doesn't have the damage yet, and the Academy Rain isn't quite enough. Humanoid will pick up Patrick, and XL started the fight, but come out and man the worst.
So shields are pretty fun there. Patrick just auto-attacking into Humanoid's face like he's not a tank. Oh, he is, it turns out. And now Mad Lions are going to be turning towards the Baron. There are wards that see them, and XL have a really interesting position here. Torre and Chekolad on the north of the fight, and Dan and Kryze coming in from underneath.
This Moonstaff coming out from El Yoyo is just too strong, though. Mad Lions, it looks like they're going to retreat and go towards the Baron. The Dragon, sorry.
That's the one.
Yep. But yeah, like the issue is, you can't cut through these shields quickly enough, and you can see in this fight as well, Kaiser, they chunk him out a little bit, and then the shield comes in.
Yeah, and I do like this idea from XL. Again, you see solo laners split around the map, so XL say, we can go in for this play. Unfortunately, can't get that kill fast enough, just like you were mentioning. And also not having Kryze, not having that displacement right off the bat meant that, well, XL are the team that's going to be routed, because Mad Lions grouped up, just pushed straight down middle. And Patrick was left isolated without his team near him. Now, of course, Patrick has the Collector finished off, as well as the Kraken Slayer, so looking a little bit better in terms of itemization. There's no objective for them to fight over anytime soon, apart from just gaining vision and some supports that Mad Lions can't pick them off.
Ender,
Medic.
I'm going to wait to see if there's a fight, because I have a strategy for XL.
Ooh.
Okay, no real fight going on. Mad Lions got mid-prio. XL might be looking for a flank position here, so I'm going to hold off on it for just a second until we see where Mad go. Okay, Mad going into the top side jungle. Here we are. Have you heard of the item Serpent's Fang?
I have, actually.
Do you know what it does?
Yeah, it's the shield boom boom.
Does damage, extra damage to shields.
It's Aurelia passive.
It's Aurelia passive, but
it's not her passive anymore.
I mean, it's not the best item in the game. is not the most efficient item in every game state. But when you are playing against a team that has Orianna Shield, Trigger Seed, Moonstar, Solar Flare going in as XL look for the fight that ultimate used by Kazi. He tries to get away. Patrick has been locked up and pulled back by the Infernal Chains, and Armor will take him out. The Shockwave off towards the top side as Shekolad is trying to fight against Humanoid, but down towards the bottom. Dan is almost dead. Kazi goes on a rampage. Humanoid wins in a 1v2, and Kaiser's here to help. Dan able to retreat back towards his base just about, but Armor swipes him away. And Krai still getting chased here by Kaiser. It's a support versus top laner, and Krais is coming out the worst for wear.
Kaiser's on the hunt, but is he going to find him? I don't think he's going to have the time. Does he not have wards in his inventory? He doesn't. That's why he's not able to spot him out. So Krais will escape, but the same cannot be said for the rest of Excel. Mad Lions played with their food for a little bit, but when they show up for the fight, they cut through them, and that's going to mean the Baron on top as well for Mad Lions.
Mad Lions will be able to secure the Baron Serpent's Fang. Probably not going to be picked up here by XL. Probably wouldn't help them even if they got it. 6,000 gold lead for Mad Lions. And that only extends to 7 as the Baron is picked up. And now with only one tower remaining outside of their base, XL are in a very, very tricky situation.
Yeah, so XL are just trying to get priority in mid so they can then contest vision inside the river. But that's where Torre sees the pick potentially onto Karzi. But again, I was talking about Torre and Krais have to be on the same page, because during the time period that Torre lands the CC onto Karzi, you also have to have the explosive cask knocking him into the rest of your team. And if that doesn't come through, well, it's just not possible. So Torre thought he saw an opening, didn't check all the, the check boxes off on his list. I don't know, something like that. And of course, that makes it very difficult to deal with, where Mad Lions can just sort of charge straight into your face.
You see Armor once again having a great game on this Aatrox. Kaiser looking for the Zenith Blade, can't quite land it. Solar Flare goes wide as well, but Patrick has been caught by Armor, who's knocked back. And look at Armor, he just escaped the middle. What are these shields? That's just not fair. That's illegal, as Kadril would say. Mad Lions retreat, wounded but unkilled. And the Trigger Seed, the Orianna Shield, well, Orianna Shield wasn't even there, actually. It was Sterak's, Trigger Seed, and a bit of healing from Gordrinker, I believe.
All right, that was silly. I had to double check, because it seemed insane. So far, Moonstone Renewer has done 2,300 healing, which isn't that insane. I've seen some bigger numbers on the item, but when you're stacking those shields, that's nuts.
I think it's pretty strong, considering there have been, like, 2 fights since the Moonstone Renewer was completed. Like, it is... it's just so devastating in a game like this, especially you can see Grievous Wounds starting to come through for XL. You've got the Oblivion Orb, you've got the Executioner's Calling, but Mad Lions very willing just to walk through this bottom lane. And XL really don't have too many ways to defend. What is that damage from Kazi? Shockwave on Torre. And there is still a counter minion here to help Mad Lions pushing. Torre and Patrick have to walk back to base.
You know, it's amazing how trigger happy Mad Lions have been all game. Like, even though we haven't seen a lot of fights, like Karzi, like going in, healing in the bot lane just to try and get extra auto attacks down. Like, they've just been throwing stuff out and seeing what lands. And when it lands, XL have nothing to show for it.
And the thing about it is not that much has to land to kill Patrick. Like, that was a cloud burst into like a couple of autos from Kazi. He's down to about 1/10 of his HP. Torre takes 1 command dissonance, and he's down to half. This cow is not too tanky. Elioya knocked to the side, the Solar Flare coming out, and I'm sorry, Shekolad, but you stepped way too far forward. Kaiser jumping in, has the stopwatch to keep himself alive. Torre dives in as well, but Krais just can't get into the middle of the action, and that's 3 down already. Patrick tries to dive in, but he's all on his lonesome, has to flash away. Armut not willing to let anyone from XL escape. And Aatrox, the World Ender, will end XL's day. 12 kills to 4, Mad Lions looking for the win.
Just clinical from the Mad Lions. You know all about that, Medic. And honestly, just cutting through this team time and time again. They won every single lane. They used the pressure from those lanes to completely dominate the map and suffocate XL. This team looking very strong to start off week 2.
Mad Lions continue their early game dominance against a faltering XL and go 2-2 in the LEC.
Easy clap.
Whoa, this music is way too funny.
I think I used the wrong emote. It's definitely a cat jam off that.
It's a rat jam, mate. Have you not seen Rat Jam?
I'm a believer in in the Church of the Cat. Okay? I stay in my lane. Okay? And it's the Mad Lions too, right? They're a cat. Cat jam.
Yeah, it's a cat jam. This one's a cat jam. We're jamming. Great stuff though from Mad Lions. We were wondering at the start of the game whether they'd be able to take their early game dominance. And are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, they cut to my camera while I was dancing, and no one was supposed to see that.
I saw the camera and then started dancing.
No, I was dancing. Nope. Thanks, Kevin.
That's a bit of a weird champ moment right there. I will say we wondered if Mad Lions could take their early game dominance and take it into the mid game and actually control a game. They definitely showed us that there. And if you think one of their players stood out amongst the rest, you can vote for them at LEC on Twitter. Elyoya, Kazi, and Kaiser are your options.
Yeah, all good options.
True.
The maddest of Lions. Who will win? You have to go on Twitter to find out.
I know, you'll find out here. You can vote.
Oh, we'll also tell you on this.
Yeah, we're going to tell you afterwards.
We've got a German clash in our next game as SK Gaming and Schalke 04 hit the Rift. Bah!
They are out there, waiting to be discovered. Some of them are big, and some of them are small. But that's the thing with ideas. They don't just come to you. To find them, you have to move. Kia, movement that inspires.
You don't have a chance against me. I can calculate 19 trillion moves in advance. Not fair. Not fair.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Got a feeling nothing is forever. Keep your voice low. The sun is high, but I wish I could bathe